My heritage assignment this year started off about my relationship with my mom. Over the past few months or so, an imaginary barrier has formed between us, and I felt like I couldn't talk to her or confront her about anything in my life. This led to more fights, more arguments, and more disagreements in my home. I viewed the excessive arguing as a teenager thing, not really taking it seriously or acknowledging that anything was wrong. It wasn't until the Heritage Project was assigned that I was forced to look at the problem from a new perspective, that something was actually wrong and needed to be fixed. The disconnect between my mom and I had started to affect the relationships outside of ours, especially those in my family. The constant arguing, the acting as if nothing was wrong, and denying the fact that we had ever fought in the first place had rubbed off on me in the way I interacted with other people. Denial and avoidance after an argument is something that everyone in my family, mostly my mom and I, struggle with. Avoiding something for so long led to worsening effects on my mental health as I was continuously stressed out, and it also affected the health of all my relationships. Throughout this conflict with my mom, I had started to ignore my siblings and turn to other people, for example my friends, who I would excessively hang out with to avoid confrontation in my home. Starting at the beginning of the school year, my parents began noticing the disconnect between me and the family right around the same time Heritage was assigned. This is when my heritage really started forming, and unlike before, I now felt ready to confront and fix my relationship with my mom, as I thought I was the only one who had come to this realization. The transformational moment I chose to represent the start of this conflict was when I was going through a lot of stress and mental strain at school. I had recently gotten into a fight with my mom and felt that I should talk to her about it because she's my mom. I built up the energy to come to talk to her about our argument, but right as I got to the door, I heard her talking to my dad about me. She was complaining about how much of a burden I was on her life and how she didn't know how to handle me or what to do with me. Suddenly, the door between us wasn't only physical, but mental as well. This feeling wasn't just this moment, and it was around this time I felt like I couldn't talk to her anymore. I knew I needed to face this issue, but was putting it off until winter break started. Once winter break began, my family was all together in the same house all day, and this led my heritage to happen whether I wanted it to or not. On Christmas Eve, my mom and I got into one of our biggest arguments to date, but this time my dad and sister were involved. This fight is all a blur for me now, but something I know for sure was we were not attempting to find a resolution. After a long time of pointless arguing, my parents took the first big steps to try and make a difference. They told us what was going through their minds, what they were doing wrong, and how they were going to try and fix their relationship with us. With all this in mind, we finally calmed down, and honestly, I do believe we solved a big problem that developed in our family. Solving this problem was amazing for all of us, and I think the fact that it seemed like everything was going so well masked the fact that I hadn't solved my initial problem, my relationship with my mom. The next day, I believed that I had completed my heritage and was ready to move on. It wasn't until the cycle of arguing began again that I realized it was not over. My mom and I got into another argument, leaving me bawling in my room, wondering why it didn't work, why completing my heritage didn't solve all my problems. I was mad at my parents, ESA, the art program, but mostly myself. I wasn't able to complete what others were accomplishing in the program, let alone have an art piece to show for it. This thought process left me confused. I wasn't sure what I was doing wrong, and I felt more alone than ever. It was just a continuous cycle that kept on happening over and over. Due to this emotional buildup, without thinking, I went to my mom's room and told her what was happening. Crying, I explained how I was stressed about my heritage project because I thought I'd completed it, only to end up at the very beginning again. I wasn't ready to tell her it was about her, but I didn't need to for her to understand me. The image of her I built up in my head, the idea that she would just shut me down the moment I tried to tell her something, was broken when she responded. She gave me advice, telling me that everything would be okay, and explained how happy she was that I opened up to her. Through this, I realized that my heritage was less about me and my mom, but rather about the bad habits that I formed within myself. The repeated avoidance in difficult circumstances and the way I would paint these false and negative situations in my head, so often that I believed they were true, was the downfall of my relationship with my mother and caused all this to happen in the first place. Going through this process helped me realize that heritage wasn't as simple as opening up to my mom, but it was discovering the habits that I created within myself. After going through all this, I still don't believe I am finished. I'm mentally not ready to open up fully to my mom, but now I know that I can and that I need to change to maintain my relationships with other people. What I figured out could easily affect every relationship in my life. I now believe my project was everything that led up to my realization. Moving forward, I am prepared to continue this journey of self-discovery, but for now, that's my heritage. Thank you.